Hello everyone, hope you're all doing well. One of my favorite incentives here. We just had the incentive of having the lines, of doing the main row and the backup row. You have the incentive of individual rows that are answering questions to be able to have multiple choice questions on the board, which is also great, especially at encouraging more classroom participation. Certainly if you're able to do multiple choice, or if it's, questions of math to have them do, what is 7 times 3? So have them go like that, which is great. They get it creative with it, which is awesome. But now one of my favorite things, one of the favorite incentives is whole class incentives. This I got from one of my mentor teachers. Absolutely phenomenal woman. Not going to mention her by name because she might not want me to mention her by name, but she really was the mother of all 4th grade, years ago. So the idea was early dismissal. Now, it doesn't mean that it used to be. It doesn't mean anymore that we just leave and have, recess outside for 15, 20 minutes. That's what it used to be. They totally earned it. The idea was that we stop all work in the classroom. How do you get that? If there's a class point, that's what I'm going to call it from here on in. If there's a class point, meaning if you have, it's not just 12 students or 15 students or 20 students that are answering the question, every single student is involved in answering this question. Or if there's someone who just lost a pencil, I raise their hand, I need a pencil. Okay, great. Well, I don't have a pencil for you. I really hope that you have a very responsible friend who can get you a pencil. If 1 or 2 students gets it for them, I'll give them a blue point on their chart that we said in the very beginning. But if it's, if it's 3, that to me, I consider that a community, a class point. Because if you have 3 boys that want to be able to help you out, that's amazing. Praise them for it. Praise them specifically for. I love how kind and caring our entire class is. Obviously by name, those individual students, but then guys, it's just the fact that our class as a whole is just so amazing for each other, so caring and giving. I'm going to give us a whole point for early dismissal. I'm telling you, not a single student that hundreds of students that I've had, not a single one ever said, I don't care about early dismissal. Everyone wants to stop work early. Even when you turn 60 years old, you want to retire, you want to stop work early. So the idea is that when there's a whole class situation that everyone's answering a question, or everyone is getting their notebooks out quickly, or everyone is lined up quickly and quietly and coming back in quickly and quietly, you could turn that into a whole class point when everyone is doing something, complete buy-in. So you might get 15, 20 points of early dismissal. Another thing, just remember this now. When the office calls down and they say, can so-and-so please come to the office? Generally, you're going to have, in the very beginning of the year, 1 or 2 boys that wants to be funny about it. So I put a stop to that really quickly by saying, you know what, guys? Every time you have a call in from the office and no one says a word before, during, or after, that's half a point. So if we have 2 and throughout the day, I'm reminding them, guys, I hope that we get another call from the office so that way we're able to have nobody call out, be quiet, and then get that extra point for early dismissal. So they're watching that whole time to be able to get more points for early dismissal. Now, that was also huge because it's really big for developing more of that self-control that they don't call out before, after, or during an announcement. But on top of it, which really only happens like 3 or 4 times a day. So okay, you got them 2 minutes. But then you also have them buying in a lot longer because they're not making any noise. The big thing here was that, early on we had a little bit of an issue of people like calling out during class, which was great that they were so engaged, but I couldn't have that. I needed to have much more of a quiet, that the only person who's talking is one that I called on or myself, not because I'm some tyrant, which maybe I am. Maybe I'm a benevolent tyrant. But the idea was, I wanted to make sure that there was no communication, that wasn't a time that there should be communication. So every 10 minutes I set during the day, 12, let's say it started at 12 o'clock, 12 to 12:20, 12 to 12:10, 12:20, 12:30, 12:40, 12:50, 1, 1:10, 1:20, 1:30, recess. Every 10 minutes, the class has a chance to earn another minute for early dismissal. Now, they do get one chance if somebody calls out. I put a little mark there, just a horizontal line next to it, whatever you want to do, but I put them up all on the wall. It's all against the whiteboard. They can see clearly the entire schedule, 10-minute intervals. 10 minutes is pretty good. I guess if you're having some difficulty, you do 5-minute intervals, but it's kind of a lot. So 10-minute intervals and give them a chance. Maybe if it's difficult for you, give them 2 chances, just 1 strike or 2 strikes. If they get that 10-minute mark, if it's 110 to 120, nobody talked between 110 and 120, beautiful, great job, guys, so glad that nobody called out. You put a check there. and you start up the clock again, 1:20 to 1:30. One person calls out. You don't even have to mention it to him. Obviously, you give him a red mark for calling out, but then now the whole class feels the pain. You put a little horizontal line there, and they are shushing him. He's not calling out again, at least for a while. And you guys, I really wish that we get it. So you can get 15, 20, I don't know however many minutes that you have during the day, between 12 and 2 o'clock. You can get a lot of points that way. And for me, I also gave double points when it came to spelling tests or math tests or tests like that. I give, it's 105 to 110, 115 to 120. So I'm doubling those points there because it is harder to not talk during a test, to say one that, oh man, it's so hard. So for that, you give them that incentive. And if it is going to be difficult for them, so you could say, guys, I don't want to hold this against you. I'm going to think about this. I'm going to see how one particular student is going to handle it. The rest of the class, we're not going to lose these points. Because if you have 2 times that somebody calls out, then you erase it off the wall. And you show them, I'm not happy about this. You erase it, and they lost a minute. But you say, guys, we're going to get the next points. And then you can tell them just that way there's no feeling of hopelessness. If we do have one particular person who's just ruining for the whole class, then he's not going to be part of our early dismissal. We are going to have an early dismissal, and if he just wants to ruin it for everyone, clearly he doesn't want to be part of our class, so maybe we'll send him to another class, and he'll just do the work with them. That buys them in immediately, and generally that student has heard the warning shot and he no longer calls out. So for me, that was one of the biggest things that changed the way that the classroom ran, besides for the early dismissal minutes for a classroom help of, they don't necessarily have their own pencil. Great, 3 boys are jumping in. But the double-edged sword is you have 3 boys that are calling out, that also loses an early dismissal minute. Don't do it more than once a week. This should be the nuclear option, but they should know that it's something that is hanging over their heads. If you have 2 boys that call out, just say, I'm so glad it wasn't 3 boys. I do have to give red marks to those two students that called out, but at least it wasn't an early dismissal minute that the class lost. And that's one of the ways that I was able to get buy-in from the whole class to make it run really smoothly.